Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I've got a fantastic guest joining me today. I've got Mark Stern, who is an expert in customer experience design and is the owner of Custom Box Agency. He was on Forbes' Top 1000 Entrepreneurs and coming all the way from Austin, Texas. Thank you so much for coming on today. So, Mark, give us an idea, give us a background about how we've got to today and what you do with your business.
Oh, thanks, Jess. Yeah, it's this business that we started. It was never meant to be a business. It was completely an accident. I was a corporate junkie. I grew up in corporate America. I thought that that was the only way to have a prosperous life. I didn't meet any other entrepreneurs aside from reading Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Work Week, but I thought these were mythical creatures and these online entrepreneurs that really didn't exist. And it was 2018 that I decided to leave corporate America. And when I did, I had no idea what it was that I would do, but started exploring the world of virtual events and started hosting my own virtual events. And the thing that drove me nuts about the online space is I would start buying these courses or joining these coaching programs or doing these different things, hiring these different practitioners. And they would give me so much digital content. I just wished that they would mail me the tools and resources that I need to be set up for success. And so I started doing this with the products that we launched. And people kept on saying, how are you building these physical box experiences? And I'm holding up some as an example to complement what you're doing digitally. And I started teaching people how to do it. And all of a sudden, people started asking me, can you do this for me? And never thought it would be the business. But then when COVID hit, you'd think that me building for years this business and virtual events would just thrive. There was something calling me about, everyone is becoming a virtual event expert during the pandemic. But there's something about sending something physical to something digital that is really powerful and killed my virtual event business at the beginning of COVID. Went all in on what is now Custom Box Agency and these box experiences that we build for clients. And the business just took off. And the powerful thing about it is when I mail you something physical, not only do I send you everything you need to be set up for success, all the resources, all the tools, the journey map, but I also give you a means that allows you to share it out. And that's what people were doing was they started doing these unboxing videos and they started selling my product and services for me. And so this ripple effect had just continued to grow as more and more people would get their hands on our boxes, that we started doing it for other people. And before you know it, this business just took off. And so that's really how it started. But we help clients not only get into your business and optimize your customer journey and strategy, but then we'll build a whole entire physical product around it to complement digital. And especially in this age of AI, when everyone is going more digital, to tie something physical truly is a new opportunity for your clients and customers.
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit like I'm a big fan of the book Blue Ocean Strategy, and it's a little bit
Yes.
like that, isn't it? It's a little bit like, everyone else is going in sort of the digital direction and online, sort of everything. And therefore you're kind of going, no, 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 we're doing this stuff that's in the real world as well. It's kind of your own sort of blue ocean on that side.
100% blue ocean strategy. And that was, I think, what it was that was calling me at the beginning of COVID was that I could keep going deeper into virtual events, which is like overnight, virtual events became a bloody red ocean because every local market event planner all of a sudden was a virtual event expert because everyone was trying to figure out the game. Pivoting to physical all of a sudden had me tap into all these people who were competitors now could be clients. And it truly opened up this entire blue ocean for what we do.
So talk me through the importance of a customer journey in place, because I'd imagine, for lots of self-employed estate agents who are probably listening to this, sort of they would love to get more sort of recommendation and referral business sort of in kind of coming their way rather than them chasing, chasing, chasing. They'd rather have people kind of chasing them. So what can agents do and what can people do to look at their process to make sure they are actually making sure that's as good as it possibly can be?
When I think about buyer behavior and when I choose to buy something, I want to have confidence that whatever it is that you're going to be guiding me through will help get the result as to what you're selling in the first place. So we sell a promise, we sell an outcome. The importance of the customer journey is I'm showing you the pathway to the outcome. What happens with a lot of businesses is they make this big, bold promise to say, here's the outcome that you're going to get when you start working with me. But I feel like the sales language out there is getting so commoditized these days that people forget that after you make the sell, you have to deliver upon the promise. And so to me, that's where customer journey becomes really critical is if I can define to show you from onboarding and getting started with me to the outcome that I'm promising you, if I can show you what that pathway looks like, not only do you give me confidence that you're going to be able to show me that pathway, I can take that pathway and leverage it in my sales collateral as well. I can take that pathway and also introduce other pathways in terms of how else I can serve you. So when I think of an estate agent, what I really want you to start thinking about is how are you going to get them the result and the promise? There's oftentimes different degrees of pain where it depends on where people are in the process, whether it's buying or selling a house, or any type of real estate. And it's just important to understand where your customer is coming from and showing them the pathway to get to the outcome. So that's to me why, what I can't tell you how many products I bought that I bought it and could see the outcome, but didn't see how to get there. And therefore, I get overwhelmed. If I get overwhelmed, what we tend to do as customers is blame ourselves. And then we hide or we refund as a result because we don't see that clear pathway to the result. So that's to me why we stress the importance of it. And I always tell people there's three journeys. Is your goal customer acquisition or client acquisition? That's a journey. Is it delivery? I've acquired you. Now I have to deliver the outcome. That's a separate journey. The third journey is retention. It's about extending lifetime value. How else can I serve you? What's the next way that I can help you achieve whatever outcome it is that I can help offer you?
Because in estate agency in the UK, we have a terrible track record for people who are actually returning back to the agent they bought their property through. So lots of people buy a property and then, 10 years later look to sell, for example. Most people can't even remember the name of the agent they bought through 10 years ago, let alone use them again, sort of thing. So there's a terrible retention rate there. How do
Yeah.
you think agents can improve that so they kind of leave that sort of memorable experience and people are like, oh, God, oh, yeah, I remember Chris, he was great.
It's so funny because I think this the simplest things that people can do, and I see some people do this, especially around the holiday season, around birthdays as well. You don't have to do something expensive, but to be top of mind is really powerful. And so that is one of the things is that people forget that what is it? I read a statistic that said people buy from like 80% of buyer behavior is based on the person in front of them. So it's the convenience of who is in front of them at that time, not necessarily the best person for the job. So this is why this idea of top of mind is so important. So easy thing to do is check in with your people, and you can automate that these days. There's different systems that you can put in place to stay relevant and just see where that they are in their buyer behavior or their housing decision. So that's it. Is it doesn't need to be over engineered, but for an agent, top of mind is critical.
Mm. And that's, generally speaking, that's one of the biggest issues that agents have in the UK, just in general, before they even get called out to a property. So the average estate agent in the UK will have about 12 agents they're up against in like the local town, effectively.
Well,
And the average person in the UK can remember about three estate agents. So on average, you're up against 12 agents, and the average person can only remember three. So it's kind of like automatically you're on the back foot there, being top of mind because statistically, you're out the pond there straight away.
And I'll even tell you, like one of the boxes that we built, this is for Krista Mayshore coaching. Krista Mayshore is a big influencer in the real estate space. She trains, and here in the US, she trains people how to dominate in their local market. And, even looking at some of her systems and processes, things that I've learned from her in that space is she is so focused on how do I stay top of mind not only from a birthday or a holiday perspective, but she puts out so much social media content. She helps agents that literally have no presence in a market start to dominate their market just in terms of how they can leverage social media. So just posting updates is another way to be top of mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly in front of your former clients or active clients. It could be how are you educating the local market and just staying relevant in that capacity. Posting content is another easy thing you can do.
And where's the balance? 'Cause obviously, we talked earlier about sort of the physical and digital side of thing. So if someone sent me an email, for example, I'd be like, okay, well, congratulations. That's one of like 1,000 email I've got today, sort of thing. Not a big deal. But if someone sort of hand delivered something, or they sent me a card, or they sent me something in the mail, sort of thing, I'd be like, wow, okay, actually, you don't get that much stuff in the post apart from sort of bills, and that's about it, really. So is there something kind of like, is there almost like a stat or a rating where it kind of says like, how many in-person events equal sort of a digital one, sort of thing, or what's the sort of response you get there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to be leaning towards more physical just because if I'm in your hands, the cool thing is like for me, when I get email, I have two email addresses. I have my work email address that I don't even access. I have an EA that manages my work email address. And then I have my personal email address. It's basically a junk file. There's just not much that happens there. I feel like it's just filled with junk mail. So for me, opening and getting my attention with email is really hard to do. Physical, if you mail me something, I'm going to open it up. And so you see these 90+% open rates for physical, whether it's a box or whether it's an envelope. Just because if I get something physical, I'm curious to know what it has. One of the things that I would say can easily be done to stay top of mind with something physical is think if I send you something, how do I get you to save it? And so being intentional about what I send you, it could be upcoming events in the local market and you do it as a magnet that you brand yourself. It could be a release of new restaurants in the areas that you're spotlighting. You may send out something once a quarter. There's all different angles that you could do, but think about it through the lens of how do I create something physical that would incentivize someone to want to save it, put it on their fridge, flip through it. I mean, those are the types of things that I would say that are a little bit more interesting to at least get more of the time in front of their eyeballs, as opposed to an email that, for me, I'm less likely. Email open rates are significantly lower than direct mail. And so that's the thing that I would think about is you don't necessarily need to do something every single day, but being top of mind and relevant. I mean, for me, you create something that they stick on their fridge of upcoming events or restaurants in the areas or things like that. The goal here is just to have them see your name. And so you stay top of mind.
And where do you recommend an agent would start there? So let's say, for example, you got a blank canvas in front of you and you go, right, I want to improve my customer experience from start to finish so that I stay top of mind. People recommend me, they refer me, and they kind of say to their friends, oh, yeah, Chris was great selling my property. Where do you think that you should even start with that process? Should it almost be weighted towards the beginning, weighted towards the end? What do you kind of see the best results as?
For me, I mean, the more that you can get them at the beginning and educate them, education is a really powerful means to nurture. And so these are the things that I would do. I would consider creating, if it was physical, can I create material? Like, just think about it. If you're targeting like the new home buyer, if it's someone in the commercial space, like whatever it is, how do I educate them to get smarter on the decisions that they're making as they embark on the journey? So if you do that and you can position yourself just to provide value in that sense, and this could be something that there's some digital content that leads to something physical to capture the lead so you can follow up with the lead. And you may say, I have this kit that I want to see you. Yes, it may have some upfront cost associated with it, but the difference is it may be far cheaper than paid traffic or paid ads in some capacity. So just look at this as another form of paid traffic that you may say, okay, you're a new homeowner. Here are some of the best practices and how to get started with searching for a new home. And that may be a packet that you put together and actually ship to them. Again, none of this has to be that expensive. But by doing so, if I can start to position myself as a trusted mentor or guide in your space, then all of a sudden, what's really powerful about that is when they're looking to get started with the process, the goal would be, I have this lead, I've educated them, I followed up with them. How can I get them into the process? And then from there, once I start to engage with them, how can then I continue to show them, here's the journey that you're about to go on from starting the search process to getting your home. Let me educate you on what to expect now that we're working together. You can paint out that journey as something that just educates. And then from there, it could be what are things that are important to know post buying a home. And you may have something small that you leave behind. And I know a lot of agents who, when you buy a new home, there's something you want to do to celebrate them. Again, I would think about the things that I could leave behind that would keep me top of mind as they, now embark into their new home. So that's something that I would do. But the benefit is if I really give you a good experience, that's the goal here is how do I make it so you want to talk about me to other people so you can help grow my movement. And then ideally, now that I have the lead and I've had a successful sell, how do I incorporate them in my systems to, whether it's once or twice a year, we check in or send something physical in the mail, a card, a holiday gift, something that just allows you to stay, again, top of mind, because I think that's what's so important in this space.
And how, I think trackable is probably the word for it. So obviously with digital products, if I, for example, send out an email and it might go to 1,000 people, for example, I've got a 20% open rate, for example, I can track that and I can track through people, clicking the button and downloading and all that sort of stuff. That's very trackable. How how do you kind of track that and sort of stay on top of that in sort of the physical world? Because it's all well and good sending people in the post, for example. You're like, okay, first of all, did they even get it? Unless they put something on their social media, you're like, did they even get it? Did they receive it? Did it make an influence on their mindset? Or is it kind of more of sort of a pitch in the dark, and you think actually, hopefully this hits the marks, and hopefully this then kind of comes back to me in a year's time?
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a pitch in the dark too. But you may send them something physical that has a call to action in it. The call to action may send them back to a digital instance. And if you could just see and track the leads that got something physical with a clear call to action, this could be exactly what I just described. I may mail you something physical. I may do a local market mass mail that's just a flat card that has a call to action to say, hey, I have the new home buyer. I have this entire kit that I want to mail you out. And whether it's a digital or it lives physically, go to this website and whatnot. At least you can track who went to the website with the call to action from the physical mailer. And especially if you create it in a way that is really enticing with the right copy, that is something that you can easily see who is responding as a result of receiving this physical piece in the mail.
Mm. And how does that change with regard to, if you've got your core values and sort of your goal as your business, how do you then sort of have your brand built around that to make sure it sort of aligns with sort of your messaging effectively?
In terms of what are you saying?
Yeah,
How
so
do I,
if you've got a certain brand, sort of a certain sort of theme in place to make sure, this is our core value as a business and it's got what we aim to do and it's to, get people on the market in this sort of area. How do you then sort of look at your sort of the branding you get out and the marketing you get out to make sure it aligns with that, to make sure it's kind of along the same sort of lines that you talk about sort of thing. So for example, if you go, I'm a super professional company and I only deal with high-end properties, I'm not going to buy them like, I don't know, a toy in the mail, for example, because obviously that doesn't sort of align with sort of what I'm doing. So how do you make
yeah.
sure that sort of the stuff you're sending out and the content you're sending kind of aligns with what you're looking to achieve overall?
Totally. And this is one of the things we say with clients that it's imperative that anything you do physically aligns with the brand identity that you do digitally. And so when we build out some of these experiences, if you see the box and how we develop it, each one has its own unique brand identity. So any physical pieces that you send, whether it's a postcard, whether it's a small packet, a small box experience, the physical and the digital need to have the same look, feel, and everything. It doesn't change the game. And so one of the things that when with what we put together, I joke and say, stop sending swag because to me, swag, we joke and say it stands for stuff without a goal. And if you send me stuff, to me, if stuff doesn't aid or help advance or nurture me, if I don't really have a connection to it, it goes in the garbage. It goes to Goodwill. I'll donate it. But this is why, like, I'm not necessarily the fan of saying send them a T-shirt or some type of widget. Like, the relevance of it needs to be on brand, and it needs to be something that makes sense. But this is one of the things that when we build out the experiences that we build out with clients, I want it to be something that when you hold it up, it just echoes the essence of who you are. If you are like, this thing I'm sending out doesn't really reflect me and is not on brand or doesn't reflect the core values, trust your gut. By default, it's wrong. And so this is kind of why the merriment of physical and digital need to truly tell one story. And so brand identity is one thing. People need to know that if they see your ads, whether it's on a billboard or a bench in a magazine, and whether they get something in the mail or it's a physical product, or whether they see something that's on like a digital property, it all needs to tell the same story. It all needs to feel a cohesive experience. So to me, that is a non-negotiable. Otherwise, if the physical and the digital all of a sudden had these two different identities, you're actually making it harder for the brain to connect the two. And you're doing yourself a disservice. So for me, that's just like it's one and the same. It's got to all tell the same story.
And where do you sit with regard to the sort of the branding on on things you do for yourself? So I went to a talk a while ago and they were quite specific and they were saying, look, if you buy a gift for somebody, it's like a moving in present sort of thing. If it's got your logo on it, it's not a gift. It's kind of like it's branding, it's sort of merch sort of thing, and therefore you're benefiting from it because got your name written on it sort of thing. Where do you sit on the sort of having your name, not having your name? It's a nice gift, but it's got my logo on it. Where do you kind of sit on that sort of scheme of things?
It's funny because it's like I when we send out holiday gifts to our clients, it does not have my logo on it. It has their logo on it. So it's something that like think about again. One of the things that we do with our clients is we monogrammed like zip up jackets for them, but it was their logo on the chest. And these jackets are actually really cool. They flip inside out and turn into a drawstring bag, and so it was their logo on it. When they wear it, they know where they got it. And so I don't need to send them a custom box agency item. With that gift, if you send a pair of knives, and this is a common thing that people will send knives that are engraved, they're going to send it with the engraving of their name of it. But the idea here is, and this is, if you've ever heard of giftology, very much out of the giftology playbook, the more that I can send you something, like you're going to know who sent you that gift, especially if you keep it every time you touch it, it's going to remind you, oh, yes. Like this is exactly who I got it from. When I moved into my place, I received a set of rocks glasses and everything was like an old fashioned set. Like I love old fashions. And so whenever I reach for that set, I know that it was my realtor who gave it to me. So those are the things that I would say is that if you put your logo on it, again, if I don't really feel much of a connection to like want to like have your branded item in my house, chances are I'll throw it out or donate it. And so that's kind of where like when you think of gifting, um, the more custom it is, again, I want to create things that take up real estate that you keep. And so if that's the case, are you more or less likely going to keep it if it had your name on it or if it had my name on it? And so those are the things that I would encourage you to think about, especially when it comes to gifting.
Yeah, and I guess it's about those. Yeah, and you talk about historically, you talk about sort of the things you save and things we save, and it's one of those things you hold on to and think actually, whether you were a client, not a client, if someone got me, whiskey glasses with my logo on, so I'd be like, I don't even drink whiskey. I'd still keep it. I would still absolutely hold on
I
to
don't
that.
even drink.
It'll live in the cupboard for the next 10 years, sort of thing. One careful owner, never use them once, sort of thing. But I would most definitely still keep them.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I stopped drinking earlier this year, and so it's all of that still is on display in my house. But I it's the same thing though. But it's cool to see. I love the brandy glasses.
Hmm. And how do you see this with obviously AI is getting bigger and bigger, which makes making sort of digital stuff easier and easier, whether that's
Yeah.
content or courses or newsletters or blogs. That's gone from being, me sitting in the keyboard for 2 hours through to like me talking to the computer for 30 seconds and it does all the heavy lifting. So do you see sort of more of the in-person stuff getting more and more popular as AI almost gets easier and easier?
Yeah, this is kind of where like the saying is, what's old is new again. And what we're also seeing right now is as AI continues to get better and better and better, you're also seeing the rise of digital distrust because it's so easy that anyone can do it. And so it's truly changing the digital game. One of the easiest ways to stand out with the noise of digital is physical. And so this is kind of where like we're having a lot of fun is that again, what's old is new again. To be able to send something physical that complements digital or enhances digital, it truly is a new opportunity. And so that's kind of where it's just that's something I'd be. A lot of people don't even touch physical because they're like, oh, it's so expensive. Well, I would argue that digital and getting in front of eyeballs is getting more expensive because it's getting so much more crowded with the amount of content that's being pumped into the system. Pre AI, we were already at a billion pieces of data a day. Now that's on an exponential with how much we're releasing. So doing the thing that people don't do, it's really no more expensive. In some ways, it may be less expensive. And it just requires a different level of work. But I think that the impact is only going to increase.
Yeah, I remember listening to a podcast with Gary Vaynerchuk on it some time ago, probably
Yeah.
about out of date now. And he was kind of talking about sort of scaling the unscalable effectively. So doing things sort of magic moments for your clients sort of thing that are in no way scalable and you can't do it for everybody sort of thing. But it's those sort of custom touches that actually AI can't touch and sort of, the digital world can't touch. But your clients receive them, they're like, oh my God, he sent me a picture of this, or he sent me a card of that, or oh my God, he sent me a toy for my kid who's just been born sort of thing. In a scalability world, it's limited scalability, but actually that's why it's important.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great example.
Oh, I really good that. Excellent, Mark. You've been really great today. So, is there anything the resources you should point people in the direction of? Where should people go if they want to, touch base with you and connect further with you?
Yeah, I know. I always love hearing what people are up to and what you're doing. And so I always encourage people to come check out our website, customboxagency.com. You can always schedule a free call with our team just to check in and see, how what we offer our clients, how you can do it within your own businesses. And then I always say, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people and learning about what you're doing. So reach out. Yeah,
Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.